On Wednesday, a grand jury in Louisville failed to indict police officers involved in the killing of 26-year-old EMT Breonna Taylor. There were 3 officers involved. The officer who actually fired the shots that killed Taylor was Officer Miles Cosgrove. Now, Miles Cosgrove was not indicted for any crime, and in fact, under Kentucky law, was deemed justified in using self-defense during this raid. Now, so it was originally called a no-knock raid, but, and that's what they had the warrant for, the officer said, well, no, we announced ourselves before we used a battering ram to open the door. Now, one indictment was issued, and it was for Officer Brett Hankinson, who prosecutors got for wanton endangerment. So basically, all the shots that he sprayed into the apartment went through the wall into another apartment, putting other people in danger. Oh, okay. I see. That's the problem. So police officers, they go in. They say that they announced themselves. I don't necessarily believe it. They used a battering ram to get into the apartment. Kenneth Walker, who was a legal gun owner, sees a bunch of men dressed in plain clothes, didn't know who they were, says he fires his legal weapon. He hit one of the officers, Mattingly, in the leg. As a result, they all returned fire. They sprayed the apartment. Cosgrove shot the bullet that killed Taylor. Walker was arrested once he realized that they were police officers. And Walker said he heard the knock, but didn't know who was coming in. Said they didn't identify themselves until later, and then fired, like I said, in self-defense. Now, Walker was, again, arrested and charged, but then had the charges dropped against him later. It's also important to note that there was a civil suit in the death of Breonna Taylor, in which the family was awarded $12 million, none of which, of course, is paid for by the police officers, but for the city of Louisville. And so it turns out, because of the police who were deemed to have been at fault for Breonna Taylor's death, didn't have to pay a dime. But you did, as a taxpayer. Well, congratulations. Now, I give you this context for a reason. Because following this decision, our friend Tomi Lahren decided to chime in with her opinion on Twitter, saying, quote, "It is not an officer's duty to gamble with his or her life so you can happily and comfortably resist arrest." How dumb do you have to be to put out that tweet? I mean, based on the details of the case, Breonna Taylor wasn't resisting a damn thing. She was murdered. And look, her boyfriend acted in self-defense against what he thought were home invaders, okay? Again, if they didn't identify themselves, or if he didn't understand their identification, right? And he just thought, there are these people trying to break into my house, break into my apartment, my girlfriend's apartment, and, I don't know what's going on. I'm going to try to defend myself, as you're allowed to do in Kentucky. Where's the NRA on that, by the way? Where's being able to defend yourself against a home invader? And by the way, I mean, what was? Yes, they got a warrant, right, to go in. For what? For what? There were no drugs there. There was no one that they were looking for was there, and so what? Why did they even need to go and get a warrant to go into that apartment, especially when they already had the ex-boyfriend who was in trouble for running drugs in jail already? They had him already. They had him. And again, the warrant was involved with Taylor's ex-boyfriend. So now, interestingly enough, and I told you this story, after this happened, the police then tried to tie Breonna Taylor into the ex-boyfriend's schemes, into his, drug business, okay, to justify her murder. She was not involved in this. And again, there was no paraphernalia, there were no drugs found in her apartment because she had absolutely nothing to do with it. And so it is truly despicable. But nonetheless, I guess they didn't even need to try to do that to justify her death. Daniel Cameron, who was the state's first black attorney general, said the officers had just, acted in self-defense. And it was because of Walker defending himself that they were allowed to shoot Breonna Taylor. He added that Hankinson and the two other officers who entered Taylor's apartment had announced themselves, again, that's dubious, and so did not execute the warrant as a no-knock warrant, according to the investigation, although since the city has banned such warrants. According to Kentucky law, he said, the use of force by officers Jonathan Mattingly and Miles Cosgrove was justified to protect themselves. This justification bars us for pursuing criminal charges in Miss Breonna Taylor's death. But here's the thing, right? Why even do the raid though? Like dressed in plain clothes. If you're going to announce yourself in the beginning. It doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense to me. Why would you do it that way? There are things that don't add up. And again, the fact that they already had the ex-boyfriend in custody. It doesn't make sense. Then why go after her in that fashion? There's a lot of bad decisions, and none of them really seem to be on Breonna Taylor at all, who was sleeping in her apartment, was woken up by this raid, and shot to death. Doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense. And she was not a drug smuggler, by the way. That's you're hearing a lot of conservative propaganda on that with no evidence or proof to back it up. And so here's the thing. Why would somebody who, by the way, why would they shoot at police officers who identified themselves as police officers? Well, that'd be rather stupid to do. And that's why, and Kenneth Walker, he said, look, I didn't know they were police officers. As soon as I figured it out, then yes, I surrendered my weapon, and I surrendered. And there's even a report where Walker had been calling the police and saying, there are people breaking into my apartment right now. And so, look, it doesn't make sense, okay? I think that there's a lot of cover your ass involved in this. And because there's a lot of things to me that just doesn't make sense. I think cops were lying in this situation, and I think it's because they do it all the time. So now here's the other thing about the Attorney General that is interesting, to say the least. So now Daniel Cameron is the first black Attorney General in Louisville, right, in the state. In Kentucky overall. Well, he's a Republican. Okay, nothing wrong with that. But he also happens to be a protege of Senator Majority Leader Mitch McConnell and has been tagged as his heir apparent. He was also one of the 20 names on Trump's list to fulfill a future Supreme Court vacancy, which just happens to have opened up. Now, Breonna Taylor's, this case was a big case for Black Lives Matter. Maybe there's, and this is my speculation, but I wonder if these things are related. I don't know. I don't know for sure. That said, here comes Tomi Lahren with some, again, her really, really terrible take. And she got wrecked for it. So now Gabriel Steele says there was no resistance in this case. Stop gaslighting. Again, you can't really resist anything if you're, asleep, okay? And you don't know what's going on. No resistance in this case from her. You know why? Because the cops would have said Breonna Taylor was a resisting arrest. They didn't say that. And police jump at the chance to say, oh, no, they were resisting. Well, not in this case. Again, nothing to do with Breonna Taylor. No charges against her were filed. No drugs were found in her apartment. Nothing, according to the police report itself. Okay? It's amazing. And even so, resisting arrest, according to TX, shouldn't be a death sentence. That's correct. Rugged Amethyst says, what she's essentially saying is that it's okay for them to risk or take your life because obviously theirs counts more than yours. Well, if you're a black person, that's how that works out. Because, of course, every time you have a white mass shooter, for example, they usually get taken alive. But black people, unarmed black people, seem to not be taken alive in a lot of circumstances. Lisa B says, she was asleep. She didn't do anything wrong, was not guilty of a crime, or else they would have charged her, right? Even posthumously. The police already had an actual suspect in custody. Folks comply with every order given by the police and are shot anyway. Daniel Shaver, for example, meaning that, it doesn't necessarily have to be somebody who's black that, didn't follow orders or did try to follow orders and were killed anyway. And then adds, the system needs a complete overhaul. And then finally, a couple more. Sharky Shark says, someone with your commitment to ignorance does not deserve a platform. Preston says, you're a piece of shit. And another person adds, sleeping while black, the new resisting arrest. And the last two, it's not an officer's duty to gamble with his or her life and time because you are afraid of dark people. And finally, Cash Eric says, you're the human embodiment of a swastika. Ain't that the truth? Look, what's actually, you know what the truth is about Tomi Lahren, is that she says these things for attention. She's very good at it, okay? She's very good at it. That's what she does. She is paid to say these kinds of things to rile people up and so that she can get money and attention and fame and then play victim when people go and attack her. That's who Tomi Lahren is. She is a professional shitposter.